Now, Annie Andrews was at today's emergency press conference held at SeaTac Airport, and she joins us now live from SeaTac. Annie, what's the message those protesters want to get across tonight? We can see so many of them behind you.
Absolutely, Nadia. And if you can believe it, this is just one of three that's happening here at SeaTac Airport right now. There's multiple people who are shutting down the exits. They're calling for them to release the detainees, anyone who might have been detained here at the airport. And to do that, they're saying, shut it down. And so they've moved different people to the different exit points of the airport. And they're doing sit-ins, stand-ins, and chants, hoping that their message gets straight to Donald Trump.
Let them in! Let them in!
Jayapal says America can't wait for President Trump to change his mind. They need to stand up now.
We need you desperately because we are fighting for our country and our values and our security. And so I would just ask that everybody step up wherever you are.
Now, we have contacted the Washington State Republican Party as well as Chairman Susan Hutchinson as well as Senator Doug Erickson, hoping to get comment for this story, but we have not heard back yet. Now you can actually see the protest is growing behind me, chanting, shut them down or let them go, referring to any detainees that might still be here at SeaTac Airport. Nadia?
Annie, we usually see these protests in Olympia, or if it's here in Seattle, it's at Westlake Plaza. The airport is not your typical place where you see a rally and protest. How have the staff there, the agents there from TSA, been able to contain and handle all of the people that have showed up today?
That's a great question, Nadia. You know, when it first started, we were at 200 people, and within an hour, it grew to 1,000. And just about 20 minutes ago, a police officer with Seattle told me they're up to 2,000. They have called in reserves with Seattle police, and we do have officers with bikes who are helping to control the crowds. But what started out, they had them cordoned off in the international arrivals section of the airport, which is all the way on the south end wing. And from there, people started to break through, and they were saying, let us in, and police did allow them to come in, and so now they're taking kind of vestige in front of every single exit point of the airport, all three exits. But police, so far, I've not seen any aggressive behavior from either the protesters or the police. Everything is very peaceful, although extremely loud. And it looks like they are saying that they are going to stay until they get confirmation that any detainees that were kept here at SeaTac Airport get released. So it's not sure quite how long this is going to go on for.
Annie Andrews reporting live for us there at SeaTac International Airport, where the scene there doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. Thank you, Annie.
From Q13, this is breaking news.
Fear and anguish after President Donald Trump's travel ban goes into effect for people from 7 Muslim countries. And then, hours later, relief for those concerned as a federal judge issues an emergency stay temporarily barring the U.S. from deporting people subject to the travel ban. Thanks for joining us tonight as we sort out what's happened since the new executive order took effect. I'm Nadia Romero. And this was a look at SeaTac Airport just about 30 minutes ago. At the height of the protests, people have been gathering all day to protest President Trump's travel ban. Several elected officials came to offer their support following the detention of people arriving from one of 7 Muslim countries listed in the executive order. And we will have a live report out of SeaTac Airport in about a minute. But first, we want to break down the details of the executive order signed by President Trump just yesterday. Now, besides the new vetting process, the order calls for a 90-day ban on travel to the U.S. by citizens of Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. And the U.S. refugee program is suspended for 120 days. Now, the Associated Press reports that includes people who are legal permanent residents with a green card or visa. But happening just hours ago, a federal judge issues a temporary stay. And the emergency order by that federal judge in New York prevents U.S. border agents from denying entry or from deporting anyone who arrived in the U.S. with a valid visa from Iraq, Syria, Iran, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen. Those are the 7 countries affected. It also covers anyone with an approved refugee application. But it's unclear just how quickly the order might go in effect for people who are in detention centers at U.S. airports right now. President Donald Trump signed the travel ban yesterday at the Pentagon following the confirmation of retired General James Mattis of Secretary of Defense. The ACLU and elected officials here in Washington say the crackdown on refugees and citizens from Muslim-majority countries is an attack on religious freedom. But President Trump says it's not a ban on Muslims.
I'm establishing new vetting measures to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of the United States of America. We don't want them here.
Well, here in Seattle, some local and state elected officials are fighting back against the executive order. That includes Seattle Mayor Ed Murray, Governor Jay Inslee, and Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
We have a message for this president, which is this executive order is inhumane and barbaric.
It is religious discrimination in its barest and obvious form.
Well, Annie Andrews was at today's emergency press conference held at SeaTac Airport, and she joins us now live from SeaTac. Annie, what's the message from those protesting? What do they want to get across tonight?
Yeah, there's not letting anyone out or in until they say they let the detainees go. The crowd now is a very different scene than what we were seeing at 9 o'clock, Nadia, where we had estimated 2,000 people here at SeaTac. Now it's a much smaller group, but you can see the protesters are locking arms. They're refusing to allow any passengers through or for any passengers to come out. And people are saying, we're going to miss our flight. They've been trying to break through the barricade only to be shoved back. Police are behind the line trying to do their best just to keep things safe and calm. But we have heard reports people are calling for friends, anyone they can, to come out here to SeaTac Airport to shut the airport down tonight. And they say it's all to send President Donald Trump a message.
Let them in! Let them in!
Within hours of the president's executive order taking effect, hundreds of protesters spilled into SeaTac Airport.
Let them in!
You can't wait for it to feel personal. It's personal right now.
Jake Fawcett brought his family to help spread the message. The time of never again is now, he says.
If Muslim people are being threatened and discriminated against, then LGBT people are being threatened and discriminated against, and Jews are being threatened, and all of us are being threatened.
No, we didn't see him. We didn't allow him to be gone there.
This is just one face we know of that airport officials confirm has been affected.
They showed me the valid visa.
Her Somalian husband was allowed to board a flight from Vienna, only to be denied entry once he touched down in Seattle.
To have them fly across the ocean, be 6 feet from their loved ones, and then be told they can't come in, that's grossly cruelty and inhumane.
Governor Jay Inslee says this is not about national security. This, he says, is something very different.
It is clear religious discrimination. And I don't care if you're a Baptist or a Muslim or a Roman Catholic. We believe that all religions ought to be treated fairly in this country.
Even from a national security perspective, this makes no sense because he is giving fodder to enemies in other countries to say that America hates Muslims.
Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal says she's working on getting those detained legal aid.
I said it was inhumane and barbaric.
Attorneys from the ACLU came to SeaTac to help, but no one is being allowed to speak or even to see those being turned away.
Let these people have an attorney.
The administration are trying to hide these people and not allow us to get access to them so that they can have access to the courts.
Jayapal says America can't wait for President Trump to change his mind. They need to stand up now.
We need you desperately because we are fighting for our country and our values and our security. And so I would just ask that everybody step up wherever you are.
And once again, these protesters say that they are fighting for the 2 detainees that they have learned are here at SeaTac Airport from the president's executive order. They're demanding they be let go, and until they do, they're not letting any passengers or travelers through. And as you see this line, you can repeat it. We're told that this is at every exit and entrance around the airport. Their goal here is to shut the airport down. We're also told that another protest, the majority of those who left tonight said that they will be protesting tomorrow night at 5 o'clock in Westlake Center. Live here at SeaTac Airport, Annie Andrews, Q13 News.
Annie, thank you. And during the protests, there was a brief window of time when the Link light rail refused to stop at the airport, instead letting some protesters off at the Angle Lake station. Now, King County Executive Dow Constantine and the head of Sound Transit have both spoken out against this. SeaTac also sent out this tweet saying they were the ones who asked Sound Transit to change their schedule. And we did see comment from the Washington State Republican Party on President Trump's executive orders on immigration and refugees. We reached out to several local GOP leaders by phone and by email, but a party official told us he didn't have anything for us on the subject. That's a quote. We did get comment from former Washington Republican Party Chairman Chris Vance.
I'm horrified. I'm outraged. This goes much farther than just a temporary ban on refugees to protect us from terrorism. This is step one towards what Donald Trump said he supported during the campaign, which Republicans said they opposed, which is a complete ban on Muslims entering the United States. This order is wrong, and Republicans should be standing up in opposition to it.
Meanwhile, local leaders are celebrating a judge's order that kept 2 immigrants from being sent back from SeaTac to countries of their origin. Representative Jayapal issued a statement on the order saying, quote, "We have won a temporary victory, halting the unconstitutional deportations of 2 people and keeping them from being sent away. Now we must keep fighting." In response to President Trump's travel ban, Iran says it's banning any new U.S. citizens from entering the country. Iran is one of the 7 countries whose residents are barred from entering the U.S. under Trump's order. In a statement, the country's leaders called the ban an obvious insult to the Islamic world. Unlike Trump's ban, though, theirs will not be retroactive, so Americans who already have valid Iranian visas are still allowed into the country.
Watching King 5 News.
A nationwide stay granted for dozens detained at airports all across the country by a federal judge in New York. And that emergency order temporarily stops the U.S. from deporting people from 7 predominantly Muslim countries listed in President Trump's travel ban. So cheers broke out in a crowd of demonstrators in Dallas when 9 detainees were released tonight. A woman originally from Syria, but who was last living in Egypt, was reunited with her daughter. Meanwhile, here at home, SeaTac Airport, more than 3,000 people have gathered to show their support for at least 6 travelers who had been detained. That number from the Port of Seattle. Tonight, 2 of those 6 people were released and allowed to enter the U.S., while 4 others were sent back to their place of departure. Elected officials did make one thing clear: the executive order runs counter to King County's values.
It's not about national security. The statistics show that people from these countries, specifically these countries that have been targeted, have committed since 9/11 fewer crimes per capita than the general population, much less the immigrant population.
The ACLU in Washington is representing those 2 people who were detained in Seattle today. So we know that cheers broke out. The fight, rather, is not over. There are still a lot of people who are expected to travel to the U.S. in coming weeks. King 5's Lily Tan is live at the airport tonight with more. Very loud scene there.
Now, the further into the night we go, this protest only seems to grow. Take a look behind me. These are just one portion of the protesters who are in the airport tonight. They're spread out all over this terminal at this point. This group here is expected to link arms in just a bit and march down the terminal upstairs. People are still chanting. People are blocking off exit ways and everything so that people cannot get through. They're chanting, "Let them free, let them in," referring to those 6 people detained here earlier today. But none of them, however, were children of one family of Syrian refugees who live just a few miles away in Tukwila. They were expecting 2 of their kids on a plane, but got a dreaded call this morning they were stuck in Turkey. Now, through a translator, their parents told us their story.
You were saying, yeah,
It's the best news they've heard all day.
The federal court for the Eastern District of New York issued an emergency stay halting President Donald Trump's executive order.
A federal judge halted part of President Donald Trump's immigration ban. This after protesters took to airports across the country, including SeaTac. Syrian refugees Ahmad and Imtital think it's a good sign.
Happiest person on earth.
أسعد إنسان في الدنيا كلها إني الله بدي يرجع يجمعني مع أولادي.
That God is gonna unite me with
ونكون
my
عائلة
family.
واحدة.
And we'll be just one family.
This was the couple minutes before the judge's decision. Last month, Ahmad and Imtital traveled from Turkey to Tukwila, thinking 2 of their 4 children were not far behind.
أجانا اتصال هاتفي بساعة
3 a.m. This morning, I got a phone call from my son from Turkey.
Then this morning, they learned their son and daughter, who is 7 months pregnant, weren't allowed to leave.
I started crying and I felt like I'm gonna pass out, and I think I collapsed in my heart.
She says her daughter had already miscarried twice in Aleppo because of stress from the war.
We lived in complete terror and in fear, and you expect that you could die any second.
That, plus another 2 years of vetting and extensive interviews before they were allowed to come to the U.S.
We understand where the president is coming from, that they need to protect their country. We respect that, but they need to differentiate between people who hold maybe hostile intent and between innocent civilians who are just escaping the war.
This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like.
Now we're back live at SeaTac Airport, where thousands of protesters are still demonstrating in the arrivals area, chanting, "This is what democracy looks like," and no word on how long they'll be doing this for tonight. Now, as for Ahmad and Imtital, it's still up in the air as to whether their son and daughter, who are also refugees, will be allowed to come here. They hadn't boarded a plane in Istanbul before they got word of that executive order. But to be clear, their parents say they went through that same 2-year vetting process that they did, and the family really hopes they can be reunited. That is, if they say that President Trump blesses them. Live at SeaTac, I'm Lily Tan, King5 News.
All right. So earlier in the day, we spoke with the executive director of CARE, which is the Council on American Islamic Relations. Arslan Bukhari says the ban will not only affect immigrants, but their American citizen family members.
A big deal when you can imagine a spouse who can't come home and join her kids and her family because she's a dual citizen. If you can imagine a spouse who can't join her husband who works at Microsoft because she is a green card holder while he's a citizen. If you can imagine a college student who's coming back home to go back to school, that's the real impact on families.
Bukhari says he expects the confusion at the airports and borders to continue because the executive order did not specify how it was to be carried out. Now, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson chimed in today, calling the president's executive order un-American and unconstitutional, saying, quote, "I will use the authority of my office to hold Trump accountable." And Canada's President Justin Trudeau also had a message for refugees. "Canada will take you." He tweeted today, quote, "To those feeling persecution, terror, and war, Canadians will welcome you regardless of faith. Diversity is our strength. Hashtag welcome to Canada." He also posted a picture of himself welcoming a Syrian child to Canada back in 2015. Trudeau, by the way, is expected to visit the White House soon. Earlier tonight, we asked, how concerned are you about President Trump's refugee ban? Very concerned, moderately concerned, or not concerned at all? And with more than 2,600 votes, 69% of you said very concerned. 30% of you said you're not concerned at all. You can make your voices heard by going to the King5 Facebook page. Also today, President Trump signed more executive orders. The first one places a lifetime ban on administration officials from lobbying for foreign governments. It also imposes a 5-year ban for other lobbying. The second order calls for the reorganization of the National Security Council to respond to new threats. And the third order gives his chiefs of staff 30 days to prepare a plan to defeat ISIS.